Chapter 1. The Boy Who Split Stormwood. The Stormwood had chosen the worst possible place to die. It leaned over the high slope with its roots half bitten out by rain, its crown tangled in two younger pines, and its trunk twisted just enough to make every grown logger in Alderfall suck air through his teeth and say the same useless thing. Leave it for tomorrow. Bram Alder set his boot against the wet bark and looked up through the branches. Dawn had only just cleared the eastern ridge. Light ran silver along the pine needles and caught in the Stormwood's split grain, where faint blue lines showed under the bark like veins beneath skin. Merchants from the low cities lowered their voices around that blue, as if the tree might hear them call it wandwood and raise its price out of spite. Alderfall mostly called it winter. Winter had a ledger in Alderfall. Stormwood bought iron nails when the roof started losing arguments with snow. Stormwood paid for lamp oil, salt blocks, medicine for lungs that did not like smoke, and the priest's replacement bell after Tobin had rung the old one with a mallet and cracked it straight down the side. Every blue-veined trunk carried a dozen village needs inside it before any merchant called it sacred. That was why no one liked leaving a Stormwood half-fallen. Trees had tempers. Weather had worse. Merchants had the worst of all. Trees had tempers. Weather had worse. Merchants had the worst of all.
Tomorrow, it falls by itself.
Old Wren gave a dry laugh from below.
And crushes the skid road.
So, we should be grateful I'm here today.
Hear that?
Mira called from the sled team.
The mountain sent us Bram out of mercy.
The other loggers laughed, and Bram felt his ears warm. He was 15, which meant the village had two opinions about him. Either he was old enough to haul a man's load, or he was young enough to be laughed at for trying. Usually both before breakfast. Mira was 2 years older and had been laughing at him since before either of them could split kindling. She wore her hair tied under a red scarf that had once been her mother's and now served as warning to anyone considering foolishness near her. Bram had ignored the warning all his life, with mixed results.
If the mountain sent him, it kept the receipt.
Good. We'll exchange him for 2 quieter boys.
You'd miss me.
I'd miss the axe. It listens better.
Bram tried to look offended while the younger loggers snickered. It was hard. The morning was cold, his hands were sure, and the whole slope smelled of wet bark and breakfast smoke drifting up from the village below. A person could be mocked in worse places. He tightened his grip on the axe haft. It was not a pretty axe. The head had been reset twice. The heel was nicked from splitting frozen roots last winter. The ash handle had dark patches where Bram's hands had polished sweat into the grain. He had slept beside it on hunting runs, used it to split kindling, prize stones from cart ruts, cut snares free, shape pegs, break ice, and once to scare a bear away from a smoke shed by beating the flat of it against a pan until his mother threatened to brain him with the pan instead. It was not a weapon. It was the thing in his hands when something needed doing. Bram crouched by the trunk and brushed mud away from the root flare. The Stormwood wanted to drop downslope. That was the obvious fall, which meant it was the wrong one. Maybe it would old tear up the skid road. Maybe it would old tech back and take someone's legs.
Rope it higher.
It'll split if we pull high.
Tree tell you that.
Bram tapped the side of the trunk with the axe pole. The sound came back thick at the lower curve, clean near the blue-veined heartwood, and hollow where rain had worked through an old lightning scar.
It told anyone listening.
Mira snorted.
There he goes. Courtship.
Bram ignored her. Answering would only make everyone happier. He climbed. The first branch was slick. He hooked his elbow over it, found a notch with his boot, and swung up, before his weight could peel him off. The axe hung from the loop at his wrist. Sap stuck to his sleeve. Bark scraped his cheek. Below, Wren cursed in the particular way. Old men cursed in the particular way old men cursed when young men did something they had also done at 15. Bram went higher. Not far. Just enough to reach the snagged crown. The two young pines held the stormwood like frightened hands. He wedged one knee into a fork and took the axe in both hands. Chop too deep, and the crown would shift. Cut too shallow, and nothing would move. He set the blade into a bent limb and struck once, twice, then stopped. The tree shivered through his knee. Not ready. He shifted his weight, cut from the underside, then slammed the haft hard against the branch to feel where the tension went.
Bram, steady.
I know.
That means you don't.
Bram grinned despite himself, struck again, and the limb cracked with a sound like a knuckle popping. The crown sagged free by a handspan. Enough. He slid down the trunk, boots skidding, one palm burning against bark. When he hit the ground, he was already moving. He cut a face notch low on the uphill side, not wide. Then sank the axe into the back cut with short, fast blows. Chips leapt. The blue lines in the wood flashed and vanished. His shoulders warmed. His breath found the rhythm the mountain had taught him: strike, pull, check, breathe. The stormwood gave a low wooden groan. Everyone went quiet. Bram stepped back and drove the axe once more into the holding wood. Not through it. Just enough to ask the tree the question. The answer came slow. The trunk tipped uphill first, against the way it wanted to fall. The freed crown slid past the young pines. One branch snapped. Then the whole stormwood turned, heavy and graceful, and came down along the open strip Bram had chosen. It hit with a deep thud that shook water from every needle around them. No skid road torn, no young pines dragged down, no legs crushed. For a breath. Bram felt taller than the ridge. Mira broke the silence.
Fine, the mountain sent us Bram. Out of arrogance.
The loggers laughed again, warmer this time. Wren came up beside Bram and inspected the stump without praising him, which was close enough.
Clean.
Bram tried not to smile and failed. They limbed the stormwood while the sun lifted. The cut face smelled sharp and green, with that faint stormwood tang like rain on hot stone. Bram ran his thumb over the hardwood. Staff merchants paid well for straight blue grain, and shrine men sometimes frowned at the billets as if prayers had first claim on anything blue. Village folk cared more that it burned long, smoked little, and bought salt, nails, and lamp oil when the merchant scales were honest. A tree could be valuable in more than one language. By mid-morning, the first sled was loaded. Mira chalked the billets with Alderfall's mark, a blunt cross near the end grain. Wren checked the count twice. Merchants became poets when numbers favored them. Bram hauled brush clear for the charcoal pit and stole a heel of bread from Mira's pack when she pretended not to see.
Thief.
Payment.
For what?
Being sent by the mountain.
Mountain pays in rocks.
Explains my breakfast.
She threw a twig at him. He caught it against his chest and bowed so badly that Wren threatened to make him haul alone if he started performing before noon. Below them, Alderfall moved through its morning. Smoke lifting from low roofs, goats complaining at fences, someone hammering a hinge back into obedience, children carrying kindling in bundles too large for pride to admit. It was not pretty in the way low city paintings made mountain villages pretty. Too much mud. Too many patched roofs. Too many hands already tired before the sun had properly committed. It was theirs. That mattered most when nobody said it. Alderfall belonged to people by labor, not by map ink. Sella's roof held after 6 neighbors climbed it in sleet when her son broke his leg. The lower bridge stayed passable under Wren's spring curses while 3 boys pretended not to learn from him. The common hearth burned through bad winters on wood every family could not spare and then lied about keeping. Bram knew which door stuck in frost, which chimney smoked when the wind came wrong, which children would steal berries and which would confess before being accused, guilt sitting too loudly on their faces. He knew the path Tobin took when pretending not to follow older boys, the wall Mira climbed when she wanted to think, the stump where Wren left broken wedges as a warning and a lesson. None of that would impress a merchant. Merchants liked tally marks, straight grain, load weight, purity of blue, distance to road. They did not price the way Alderfall passed tools from hand to hand without asking who owned the handle. They did not count how many roofs a single Stormwood became after it became coins. They certainly did not count Tobin standing below with kindling half his size, waving like Bram had personally arranged the sun. Bram raised 2 fingers back. Tobin waved harder and nearly dropped the bundle. Mira saw and shouted something too far away to hear. Tobin straightened at once, offended by gravity and supervision in equal measure. Wren followed Bram's gaze and grunted.
Village won't split itself while you admire it.
Could try.
It would do a worse job.
So you admit unuseful.
I admit the village has low standards before noon.
Bram smiled and dragged another brush pile toward the charcoal pit. The work bit into his palms. The morning smelled of sap and smoke and wet wool. Somewhere below, someone started singing off-key while hammering, and a second voice joined only to make the first one worse. It was a stupid song. It made the slope feel warmer, not safer. Alderfall was never safe in the way lowland people used the word. The mountain took fingers, roads, roofs, and sometimes people who knew better than to trust it. But danger was different when everyone knew its habits. A cracked bridge could be braced. A bad roof could be patched. A hungry winter could be counted early and argued with stack by stack. War did not feel like that yet. War was still a rumor beyond the ridge. A thing adults mentioned when they thought children were carrying water too far away to hear. He was dragging brush aside when he saw the mark. It sat on a standing trunk beyond the fall line, half hidden behind a strip of moss. 3 short blue notches, vertical, then a slanted 4th. Too neat for a child's knife. Too deep for road paint. Not a village tally either. Alderfall marked its trees with cross-cuts at the root, where snow would not hide them. Bram glanced back. Wren was arguing with Mira about whether the East team had stolen their good wedge again. No one watched him. He rubbed the mark with his thumb. The blue did not smear. It had soaked into the bark, as if the tree had drunk it. Bram looked deeper into the forest. The morning was bright. The village smoke rose below in thin white ropes. Somewhere a goat complained with the tragic force. Only goats possessed. Everything was ordinary. The mark stayed under his thumb, cold as old rain. By afternoon, Bram had decided the blue mark was probably nothing. This was a useful decision. It let him be annoyed about something simpler. Alderfall had a talent for making warnings look like chores. The blue notch on the Stormwood should have stayed sharp in his thoughts. Instead, the village filled the day around it. Sella wanted 3 split lengths carried to her back wall. Her hip had decided rain was coming before the clouds did. Wren needed Bram to check the upper stack where damp had crept beneath the canvas. Mira sent him after Tobin with 2 words and a look. Tobin had gone quiet in the dangerous way children went quiet when they believed usefulness required secrecy. By then the marked billet had become one more strange thing among ordinary ones. Stormwood always made people strange. Low city merchants arrived each spring with soft gloves and hard smiles, tapping ends of cut timber as if the logs might answer back. Wandrites paid more for one clean heart grain length than a farmer paid for a mule, then complained if a knot sat half a thumb too high. Priests spoke of prayer-suitable wood in voices that made Bram want to scratch his neck. To Alderfall, it was still trees that had to be felled before frost, hauled before thaw, stacked away from rot, and guarded from boys who thought climbing billets proved courage. Magic people loved the wood after the work was done. Villagers loved it before that, when it was weight and weather and food for winter. That was why the blue mark annoyed Bram more than it frightened him. It treated the tree like it had belonged to someone before the village even cut it.
You moved my snare.
Tobin Vale stood ankle-deep in wet fern, small face twisted into an offended scowl.
I didn't move it. It moved.
Snares don't move.
This one did.
Bram's eyes had already left the boy's face. They went to the bent sapling, the snapped cord, the empty loop, the mud below Tobin's boots, the wet root behind his heel, and the drag mark leading toward the upper pines. The air smelled of rain waiting to happen. Clouds had lowered over the ridge until the mountains seemed to be wearing a gray wool cap.
Fine. The rabbit untied itself and walked away politely.
Tobin brightened.
Could be a clever rabbit.
If it is, I'm eating it first.
The boy laughed, which was better than the trembling he had been doing when Bram found him. Tobin was 8, all knees and questions, and had followed the snare line alone to prove he could help with supper. That was the trouble with children. They watched older fools do something and mistook it for permission. Bram checked the mud. The rabbit had not untied anything. Something had dragged it out of the loop, then cut across the slope instead of following the animal track. Too heavy for a fox. Too neat for a bear. The broken fern pointed uphill toward the ravine path. He did not like that.
Stay behind me.
Is it a clever bear?
If it is, I'm letting it eat you for asking.
Tobin obeyed for 3 steps. The trail narrowed where 2 pines had grown from the same split rock. Past them, the ground dropped into a ravine full of black water and old branches. Bram kept one ear on Tobin's breathing and both eyes on the path. Root, stone, moss, boot, branch. He had crossed it 100 times. He knew which root held, which stone rocked, which patch of moss hid nothing underneath. Tobin knew none of that. He knew only that Bram crossed fast. So fast must be the right way.
Slow.
The boy put his foot exactly where Bram would not have put it. The moss peeled. Tobin yelped and slid sideways. Bram caught him by the back of his coat with one hand and slammed the axe in his other hand across 2 roots. The haft bit against bark. His shoulder pulled hard enough to light pain down his arm. But the brace held. For a moment, Tobin hung with both boots kicking over the ravine.
Don't.
Bram said through his teeth.
Tell your mother.
Tobin's eyes were round.
She'll ask why my coat's torn.
Tell her a clever rabbit did it.
That got a wet little laugh. Bram hauled him up by fistfuls of coat and dignity, then made him sit on the rock until his breathing slowed. The axe had wedged deep between the roots. Bram worked it free gently, checking the haft with his thumb. No split, no bend. Good wood. He had shaped the handle last spring after the old one cracked, shaving it down until it fit his grip and no one else's. Wren said that was vanity. Bram said it was sense. A poor fit made blisters, and blisters made dropped tools, and dropped tools made graves if the slope was steep enough. He found the rabbit 20 paces later. It lay under a fern, neck broken cleanly. The snare cord cut with a blade. Bram stopped joking. Tobin noticed.
Bram?
Stay there.
The mud beyond the fern held boot prints, not village boots. Alderfall soles were patched with hobnails wherever the ground ate leather, and half the village used the same crooked pattern from Mira's uncle's bench. These prints were narrower, with a hooked mark at the heel. Soldiers, maybe. Treaters, maybe. Smugglers, if smugglers had begun cutting rabbit snares instead of stealing salt like honest thieves. Bram crouched lower. The stranger had stepped around dry twigs and cut one branch rather than break it. A careful person. A quiet person. His thoughts went back to the blue notch on the Stormwood. He did not want them to. The wind moved through the pines. Their needles hissed all at once, and Tobin flinched.
Is it bad?
Bram covered the print with loose needles before he knew why. Maybe he wanted to show Wren first. Maybe if the print stayed visible, it became real.
It's something.
That was not comforting. Tobin looked ready to cry, so Bram picked up the rabbit and held it by the back legs.
Good news. Supper didn't escape.
You said you were eating it first.
I saved your life. I get both legs.
You said not to tell Mom.
I saved half your life.
Tobin managed another laugh, thin but real. Bram led him back along the safer side of the trail, slower this time. He watched every branch, every patch of mud, every pace a person could stand, and see the village road through the trees. Near the last bend, he found another print. This one pointed downhill, toward home. By dusk, Bram had 3 pieces of nothing: a blue mark on a Stormwood trunk, a cut snare and a boot print with a hooked heel, a second print pointing toward the village road. 3 pieces of nothing were still nothing, according to Wren, who said it while sharpening a drawknife outside the long shed. He did not look up when Bram finished explaining. That was how Bram knew the old man was listening.
Could be surveyors.
Surveyors ask.
Could be merchants.
Merchants count in daylight and complain where everyone can hear them.
Could be you dropped one tree clean and now think the mountain owes you another trick.
Bram opened his mouth. Wren pointed the drawknife at him.
That was not an invitation.
The village moved around them in the blue hour before supper. Smoke thickened from stone chimneys. Goats were dragged from places goats had no business reaching. Someone's baby screamed with the outrage of being washed. The long shed smelled of sap, horse sweat, and the sour oil used on saw teeth. Home, Bram thought, should have made him feel foolish. Instead, it made him angry that he could not prove anything. Alderfall at supper time was impossible to fear properly. The bell had not rung yet, but people were already drifting toward it. Men came down from the high cuts with bark dust in their hair and the careful walk of bodies that had been useful all day. Children ran errands badly and with great importance. Someone had set a pot of onion stew near the common hearth, and the smell crept between sheds until even Wren glanced toward it, with the solemn betrayal of a hungry man pretending to be above hunger. Tobin sat on the woodpile carving a heroic face into a turnip with Bram's smallest knife.
That better not be mine.
It's a historical king.
Historical kings don't have rabbit ears.
This one was cursed.
Mira crossed the yard with a flour sack over one shoulder and said,
If you cut yourself, I'm telling history you died of vegetables.
Tobin considered the knife, the turnip, and the public record of his courage.
I accept.
Bram laughed despite himself. The sound made the worry worse, not better. Warm things did that. They showed you exactly where a blade would hurt if it came down. Mira came out of the storehouse carrying a tally slate.
If you're worrying Wren, at least do it inside. The midges are eating him and he'll blame you.
They know old meat is tender.
Hear that? Boy wants extra ditch work.
Mira looked from one to the other. Her smile faded a little.
What happened?
Bram hesitated. Mira had a way of turning fear into tasks before fear could argue. It made her useful in a storm and dangerous when a person wanted to keep a worry private.
Show me the wand woodcuts.
Why?
If I say why first, you'll say no.
That's usually true of your reasons.
Then this will save time.
She studied him for one breath, then pushed the storehouse door open with her hip. The inside was dim and close. Stormwood billets were stacked along the left wall, sorted by length and grain. Ordinary burnwood filled the right, though half the low city buyers sniffed at it now and boasted that a thumb-sized hearthstone could warm a noble room cleaner than a cartload of honest logs. The best pieces, the straight, blue-veined cuts merchants called wandwood when they wanted to pay less and sell high, were kept off the damp floor on cedar rails. Bram had stacked half of them himself. He took the slate from Mira and ran his finger down the tally marks. Village marks were simple: length, split, grain, owner, a cut for Straightheart, a notch for Branch Flaw, a cross for Winterfeld. There were no secrets in it. The village did not have the patience for secret bookkeeping, but near the back of the stack, on a billet as long as Bram's arm, someone had added 3 short blue lines and a slant, the same mark. Mira saw his face before she saw the wood.
Bram, what is it?
He pulled the billet free. The blue had soaked into the grain, not painted on top. He checked another. Nothing. Another. Nothing. The fourth had a smaller mark near the cut end, half hidden where the bark had not been fully stripped.
These were counted yesterday.
By who?
By us.
No, after us.
Mira's mouth tightened.
If those go missing, we don't buy salt before snow.
Or iron, Bram thought. Or lamp oil. Or the green medicine Tobin's little sister took when the cold went into her chest. Wren had come to the doorway without making a sound, which was unfair for a man whose knees cracked like dry sticks whenever he wanted sympathy. Bram held up the marked billet. The old man's expression changed. Only a little. Only enough.
Inside.
We are inside.
Further.
Mira shut the door most of the way, leaving a handspan of dusk. Bram's pulse had gone strange. Not fast exactly. Hard. Each beat felt like a fist against his ribs. Wren took the billet and scraped the mark with his thumbnail. Blue stayed in the wood.
Not merchant chalk.
No.
Army?
Wren did not answer, and that frightened Bram more than an answer would have. Outside, the village bell rang once for supper. A normal sound. A safe sound. People would be washing hands, cuffing children, arguing over who had taken the last onion from the root bin. The whole village turning toward lighted rooms and bowls and benches polished by generations of elbows. Bram looked through the gap in the door. Beyond the yard, past the last goat fence and the split rail where the road bent toward the trees, something moved. At first he thought it was a deer. Pale, quick, gone behind a trunk. Then the last light caught a face between 2 marked trees. It was too still to be a deer. Bram dropped the billet. By the time it hit the floor, the face was gone.